Okay, we're good now. So actually, could you just give a little background on how you ended up in education and how you ended up at Northwestern?
Sure. When I was a high school student, I was probably not the student that did all their work or had the best grades. I thought I was very smart. Things were easy for me.
Yeah.
I didn't put too much effort into what I was doing. I put enough effort. I was that student that did real well in the classes they liked, and then in those classes that you really didn't get along with, or didn't get along with the teacher, or you just had no interest. Those are the classes that I suffered. As when I was a senior,
Okay.
Early on I had a very good base of my education, but what was happening when I graduated, I failed out of Maryland, my first semester there. Because I was kind of lost, didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Got into coaching.
Okay.
And at the high school that I graduated from.
What were you coaching?
Football.
Okay.
And so and then the head coach said, "Well, why don't you substitute teach?"
Mm-hmm.
So I got into that, and then I said I really like working with kids, so I went back. I did end up going back to school to become a PE teacher.
Okay.
And then finished up. Started at Bowie, got back into school, went to Bowie State, got my GPA back up, transferred all my credits back to Maryland, and then ended up graduating from Maryland.
Awesome.
And then I went back to teach at the same high school that I graduated from for 6 years. And throughout that time, I really was intrigued with administration, and I continued to coach other sports, but got my master's from McDaniel in administration, in curriculum instruction with a certificate in supervision, and became assistant principal there also at the same school.
Wow!
So some of the teachers that was teaching me and telling me what to do,
you're working with then again.
Work with them, and then I started supervising them.
Wow!
So that's a very different and difficult place to be. I went to Howard County.
Okay, that's where I'm from, actually.
Oh, okay. Went to Long Reach.
Okay.
Became assistant principal there for 5 years, and then after the 5 years, said, I'm going to take a shot at becoming a principal and go back to Prince George's. Mm-hmm. So here I am. This is my second year.
Awesome. So. It's a cool story. I went to Atholton,
okay.
Actually, so I'm very familiar with Howard County.
Yep, and that's where I have my youngest son will go to Atholton.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, awesome. My sister's there right now. She's a sophomore.
Oh, okay.
So for you and since you've been both in like an administrative position as well as teaching itself, how would you describe an ideal classroom?
An ideal classroom. It's someplace where kids have the comfort level and the ability to speak out and ask questions and be wrong.
Yeah.
I like as I walk around, I don't necessarily like to see rooms where the kids are in rows and just doing worksheets, or that's okay, but it can't be the whole period as far as independent work the whole time.
Yeah.
I like those classes where a phrase that people may or may not understand, but I like to see butts in the air.
Okay.
That means the kids are out of their seats.
Doing stuff.
Or they're leaning up. When a kid leans over their desk and really intrigued, that means they're excited. They want to just jump in, and that means that their butts are in the air.
That's a good phrase.
So that's the kind of things I like to see. I like to see dialogue. I like to see teachers who have a command. So if there is dialogue and kids are doing independent work and working together, and the teachers are just facilitating, that there's some structure, that all it takes is the teachers just say one word or a phrase and everyone comes back together.
Yeah. Cool. That's what I noticed, at least in the classroom I'm in, is once we got into groups and we made it more personalized almost, people got really into it.
Yes.
And I liked that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
we've learned about, kind of the lecture-oriented aspect of being in a college does not work very well, especially when you're dealing with people that aren't maybe interested in the subject that's going on. And I thought, the way the classroom I'm in, you're doing blocks of desks instead of rows, and I liked that.
Sure. It's that student-centered learning where the students are almost in charge and they kind of direct their own learning, and they're involved in their own learning. It's not just a teacher-directed lecture.
Yeah, I don't think that would work very well. Is there one overarching theme or aspect of teaching that you think all teachers should be emphasizing to their students?
The one thing that I always have been told, and I tell my teachers this all the time, build a relationship with the kids. You have to have a relationship with your students. You could know all the strategies in the world. You could know all the content in the world. But if the kids don't understand that you're really there for them, and you care about them, and they care about you, that relationship there's nothing else can happen if you don't have a healthy relationship with your students.
That's a really interesting point. Okay, this one's a little different, but I think it comes from. I read an interview with Principal Lodo from. She's from Virginia, and she is a principal for a tech magnet school. So, how do you feel about a magnet or private school that takes students out of their community to a different school? Because I feel like Northwestern is doing really well without having to do that. You know what I mean?
Well, I think one of the concerns 2 or 3 years down the road when they implement that College Park Academy, there's going to be a charter school that pulls students from this school.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And right now it's supposed to be in College Park, but right now it's at next year it'll open up at St. Mark's.
Okay.
Right up the road.
Yeah.
And so I'm not that concerned because my goal was never. The goal is never. Hold on. The goal that I'm having is never to. It's all about the students. So if we build a great program, I shouldn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
If the teachers are on board with having the best interest of the students in mind, I shouldn't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Because the kids will still come here, no matter what. And going through a very comprehensive high school, there's nothing better. It molds you differently than in a magnet school.
I agree. That's why I just didn't understand. I think it's kind of inherently wrong to divide somebody, especially when they're so young like that. You lose not necessarily diversity, but
that sense of
learning community and learning about people from different backgrounds, and there's a wider range of who you're interacting with.
Sure.
And you can learn things from people that maybe aren't coming from the same background that you are.
Absolutely.
What for you has been the hardest thing about being principal? My guess, at least, would be just the age of teenagers might sometimes be really difficult. But this is a question for you, obviously.
Well, I don't know if it's about being a principal or being a principal in Prince George's County or being a principal at Northwestern. One of the most difficult things that I've seen, the kids are easy. To me, the kids are easy. I can handle the kids. It's when, but what I've learned in my 2 short years is if the adults aren't putting their oars in the water at the same time and stroking at the same time.
At home, you mean?
No, the adults,
teachers. Okay.
If we're not all doing it together, and if we're not putting our oars in the water at the same time and stroking at the same time, it's a lot harder work.
Okay.
So that concept of team, I could always say it, but actually living it, especially with the demands of everything else, sometimes I forget the main purpose of why I'm here and some of the strategies that I've always used in my career to be successful, which was always team, which is always we're going to work hard, but we're always going to have a result at the end, and we're going to have a good time getting there.
Yeah.
But sometimes with all the demand of accountability, you lose it. You lose that sometimes.
Okay.
So learning that balance as well.
Okay.
That's a difficult
okay.
thing to do.
So this is the last question because I know you got other stuff to do. So what would be the biggest lessons that other educators could learn from your experiences, both in education and as principal?
I would say never give up, and never, and in order to fit a square peg in a round hole, you don't want to whittle the peg down. You just make your hole larger.
Okay.
So that you build your toolbox so you allow everything around you to be able to get into that hole.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you so much.
Sure,
This
no
was
problem.
awesome.
No problem.
I